Snow fell softly over the kingdom of Vermore, covering the stone towers of the palace in a thin white blanket. Inside the nursery, a young woman named Mira sat by the fire, rocking a small wooden cradle. 2 newborn pups lay inside, wrapped tightly in soft blankets. Their tiny chests rose and fell with weak, uneven breaths. Mira had worked in the palace for 3 years, ever since she was taken in as an orphan, with no family name and no pack rank. She was not born into nobility, and she carried no title. She simply worked hard, kept her head down, and did whatever task was given to her. Lately, that task had become the most important one in the entire kingdom, caring for the newborn children of Alpha King Draven. The queen had died giving birth to the twins, and the whole palace had been draped in grief ever since. The healers said the pups were too weak. Their small bodies could not seem to hold on to strength, no matter how much warmth or milk they were given. Every night, Mira listened to their fragile breathing and feared that by morning, one of them might not wake up. She had heard the old stories whispered by the palace maids, stories about the holy spring hidden deep in the northern forest. It was said that the water there had been blessed generations ago, and that it could heal wounds no medicine could touch. But the spring was forbidden to anyone who was not of royal blood. To enter its waters without permission was said to bring death by the king's own law. Mira knew the risk. But as she looked down at the pups, their small fists curled weakly against the cold, she made her decision. She would rather face punishment than watch them fade away without trying to save them. That night, when the palace fell silent and the guards changed shifts, Mira wrapped the pups in a thick fur cloak and slipped out through the servants' entrance. The forest was dark, lit only by pale moonlight breaking through the bare trees. She walked quickly, her heart pounding with every step, praying she would not be seen. After nearly an hour of walking, she found it. The holy spring. It was smaller than she had imagined, a round pool of water surrounded by smooth white stones, glowing faintly under the moon. Steam rose gently from its surface, even though the night air was freezing cold. Mira knelt at the edge and hesitated for only a moment, before lowering the pups into the warm water. The moment their small bodies touched the spring, something strange happened. The water began to glow brighter, swirling in soft circles around them. The pups, who had been weak and quiet for days, suddenly let out strong, healthy cries. Their tiny bodies seemed to grow warmer, stronger, as if life itself was being poured back into them. But something else happened too, something Mira never expected. A sharp pain shot through her chest, and she gasped, gripping the edge of the spring. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, she felt as though her entire body was being pulled apart and put back together. When the pain faded, she looked down at her hands and saw them trembling, but not from cold. She felt a strange presence stirring inside her, something ancient and powerful that she had never known was there. Mira did not understand what was happening. She had never shown signs of having a wolf. Everyone in the palace believed she was one of the rare humans without one, someone who could serve the pack but never truly belonged to it. Yet now, kneeling by the glowing spring, she felt her wolf awaken for the very first time in her life. Before she could process what was happening, she heard footsteps crashing through the trees behind her. King Draven emerged from the darkness, his golden eyes glowing with alarm. He had felt something pull at him from deep within his chest, a sensation he could not explain, dragging him straight to the spring. He expected to find an intruder threatening his children. Instead, what he saw made him stop completely still. Mira knelt by the water, and standing protectively around the pups was a wolf unlike any he had ever seen. Its fur shimmered silver and white, catching the moonlight in a way that made it seem almost unreal. The wolf's eyes were fierce yet gentle, watching over the pups with fierce devotion. Draven's own wolf, usually powerful and commanding, suddenly went silent inside him. It did not growl or posture. Instead, it lowered its head, as if recognizing something greater than itself. Draven had never felt his wolf submit to anyone before, not even to the memory of his late queen. "Who are you?" Draven demanded, though his voice was quieter than he intended. Mira turned, her silver wolf still standing guard beside her. Her face was pale with shock, unsure of what had just happened to her own body. "My king, I only wanted to save them," she whispered. "I did not mean to break any law. I could not watch them suffer any longer." Draven stepped closer, his eyes moving from the glowing spring to the healthy, crying pups, and finally to Mira herself. He could see she was just as frightened and confused as he was. Whatever power had awakened in her was clearly beyond her own understanding. "Your wolf," he said slowly. "You never had one before tonight." Mira shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "I don't know what happened. I only touched the water to help them." Draven knelt down and lifted his children into his arms, feeling their strong heartbeats for the first time since their birth. Relief flooded through him, but it was mixed with confusion about the woman kneeling before him. He knew the law of the spring. He knew what should happen to anyone who entered it without royal blood, but he could not ignore what his own wolf had just shown him, complete and total submission to her presence. He said nothing more that night. He simply ordered Mira to return to the palace with him, the pups safe and warm in his arms, her silver wolf trailing quietly behind them through the trees. News of what happened spread through the palace by morning. Servants whispered in the halls, nobles gathered in worried circles, and by midday, the palace council demanded an audience with the king. Lord Baron, the palace's beta commander, stood at the front of the group, his face hard with anger. "She broke the oldest law of our kingdom," Baron said loudly. "No one without royal blood may enter the holy spring. The law exists to protect our bloodline, our pack, our future. If we allow this to go unpunished, what message does it send to the rest of the kingdom?" Several nobles nodded in agreement, their voices rising in support. They feared what an unknown bloodline awakening near royal children could mean for the future of the pack's leadership. Draven sat on his throne, listening carefully, his children resting peacefully in a nearby cradle for the first time, without fear of losing them. "She saved my children's lives," Draven said finally, his voice cutting through the noise. "If she had not acted, they may not have survived the week." "That does not erase what she did," Baron argued. "The spring does not simply heal without reason. It chooses. And if it has chosen her, we must understand why before we decide what to do with her." Draven's jaw tightened, but he knew Baron was right. There was more to this than a simple act of desperation. The spring had never awakened a wolf in someone before. It had never responded to an outsider with such power. He ordered an inquiry to be held, giving Mira 3 days to explain herself before the full council. During those 3 days, Mira was kept in a private chamber, guarded not as a prisoner, but watched carefully all the same. Her silver wolf remained close by her side at all times, refusing to leave her, calm yet ever watchful. During those quiet days, strange memories began surfacing in Mira's mind, memories that did not feel entirely her own. She saw flashes of an old forest temple, women dressed in white robes standing beside the very same spring, chanting softly as pups were bathed in its glowing waters. She saw a woman who looked remarkably like her, standing as a guardian, beside a much older king, protecting his children, just as she now protected Draven's. She began to understand, slowly, that these were not simply dreams. They were memories, buried deep within her bloodline, passed down through generations she never knew she belonged to. On the 3rd day, Mira stood before the council, her voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. She spoke of the visions, describing the ancient guardians who once protected royal children through the power of the Holy Spring. She explained that her bloodline, thought to be extinct for generations, had clearly survived in secret, hidden even from herself. The council murmured among themselves, some in disbelief, others in quiet realization. An elder healer, who had studied the old texts for decades, stepped forward and confirmed what Mira described. Ancient records spoke of a guardian bloodline sworn to protect the royal pups using the spring's power, a bloodline that vanished mysteriously long ago, believed wiped out during an old war. "If this is true," the healer said, "then what happened at the spring was not a crime. It was the bloodline's purpose, finally awakening, after generations of silence." Draven rose from his seat, his golden eyes steady and certain. "Then there is no law broken here. There is only a purpose fulfilled." He turned to face the council directly. "Mira is not an intruder. She is the rightful guardian of my children, chosen not by me, but by the spring itself, and confirmed by my own wolf's submission before her." Baron, though still uncertain, did not argue further. The confirmation from the ancient records left little room for doubt, and the king's decision was final. The council slowly nodded in agreement, some still whispering questions about what this meant for the future, but no longer questioning Mira's right to remain. In the weeks that followed, Mira was given a new place within the palace, no longer a simple caretaker, but the sworn guardian of the royal pups. She spent her days with them, watching them grow stronger and happier under her care, her silver wolf always close, watching over them just as devotedly as she did. Draven found himself visiting the nursery more often than before, drawn not only by his children's laughter, but by the quiet strength Mira carried with her. He watched the way she cared for his pups with such gentle devotion, the way his own wolf remained calm and peaceful whenever she was near, something it had never done with anyone else since the loss of his queen. One evening, as the sun set gently over the palace gardens, Draven found Mira sitting near the nursery window, watching the pups sleep peacefully in their cradle. He sat down beside her quietly, his presence no longer causing her the same fear it once had. "You gave my children their lives back," he said softly, "and in doing so, you found a part of yourself you never knew existed." Mira smiled gently, watching the pups' steady breathing. "I only wanted to help them. I never expected any of this." Draven studied her for a long moment, feeling a warmth in his chest that had been missing since the loss of his queen. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "the spring did not only choose you for them, perhaps it saw something more." Mira looked at him, her cheeks warming slightly under his gaze, though she said nothing. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding rather than uncertainty. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, and the first light of a clear evening sky shone gently over Vermore. Inside the nursery, two pups slept soundly, safe and strong, guarded by a bloodline once thought lost, and watched over by a king who had finally begun to heal. Mira did not know what the future held for her, or what her ancient bloodline might still reveal in time. But for now, she was exactly where she was meant to be, protecting the children who needed her, standing quietly beside a king who no longer looked at her with suspicion, but with quiet, growing respect. And somewhere deep within her, her silver wolf remained calm and steady, no longer hidden, no longer silent, finally home.